But Daniel was determined not to defile himself by eating the food and wine given to them by the king. He asked the chief of staff for permission not to eat these unacceptable foods. The Lord's really been sharing with me about what it means to be undefiled before Him. And lately, reading through Daniel and fasting Daniel, and also Matthew 13:14-16, I want to have ears to hear and eyes to see and a heart to understand. It's not just about purity or uncleanness, it's about being undefiled as far as sin and how he sees sin at any point. Daniel refused to be undefiled. He saw something in the heart of God that others didn't. It's not just about purity or uncleanness, it's about being undefiled as far as sin and how he sees sin at any point. With a situation I had recently, I was responding out of how I was hurt, and I was hurting someone else, which is not what God wanted me to do, because then I was sinning. And it was okay for me to be hurt and explain to that person how it was hurt, but it was not okay for me to react out of that hurt. I was in my bedroom, and I've been fasting, and I leave the Bible playing throughout the day, and it was in my bedroom. I went to put my socks on, and I was still in this situation. I was like, God, I don't want to. I'm right. My feelings are hurt. And in the background, I've been playing Daniel 1 and Matthew. And it was talking about laying our gifts before God, and before we go to the altar, go to that person and ask for forgiveness. And he was already talking to me about this, and I was like, no, I don't want to do this. And then the second verse after that was about obedience, and obedience is better than sacrifice. And then I was like, okay, fine. Purity is actually about not having any sin present. You know, in the Old Testament, it talked all the time about what it was like being unclean. You couldn't even come into the Holy of Holies without, washing your hands, being spiffy and everything. And I can't imagine how hard back then it was. But now we have Jesus, so we don't have to have that. Having a pure heart before Him in our generation, that others may see, just like Daniel, because Daniel was positioned after this in places of power and position, and he was still the same person. His character stood strong even throughout, and they kept going back to him. And he had tests that he kept going and passing through because he refused to be defiled. In Daniel 1:8, he determined not to defile himself. It says, he took the choice to not defile himself. And I think it's important in our generation to make sure that we are not defiling ourselves, that we take the initiative. When there's sin present, we don't ignore it. We come to God and ask for forgiveness, and then we go to whomever if there is a restitution or a forgiveness act. It's kind of like this little story I heard about. You go into a fancy restaurant, they have all the tables spread out before you, and they bring a fancy plate and there's a marshmallow on it, and that's your relationship with God. Do you want it to look like a marshmallow, or do you want the whole 6-course meal? And I want the 6-course meal, and I hope that we choose to have that 6-course meal.